Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update, guys. I hope y'all are doing well this morning. We have a key update today for the month of July. Some critical overnight trends that I want to talk about on the EPS model specifically, and then a tendency in one of our pattern drivers that has me concerned that there could be another big heat wave as we get into the middle part of July. So we'll break all that down in today's video. I want to start out with that overnight run of the European ensemble model. If you're not familiar with the ensembles, just to kind of review that, 51 different members or individual models that is then blended together into this one big ensemble. And this is a pretty substantial trend for especially this time of the year and for this model specifically. Pretty notable warmer trends throughout the week 2 time frame for much of the central and the eastern U.S. all across parts of the Ag Belt. Now, if you've watched our videos throughout this week, we've talked about how we felt like neither the EPS or the GEFS really had the right idea, and we've generally been leaning towards the warmer idea because of some of our key pattern drivers like our global winds, which favor warmer than normal temperatures into the month of July. Now, at least for the time being, we haven't really been talking about notable or extended heat over the next couple of weeks, though I do think that there's an increasing potential, and certainly this trend builds more confidence in that there can be a bigger heat wave again as we work towards the middle part of July. Now, in terms of precipitation trends with this, the other thing with the EPS throughout this week is we felt like it was too far south with its moisture corridor, especially getting into that second week of July. Trends overnight, quite a bit drier across the southern tier of the United States, wetter across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. I think that is a big trend in the right direction overnight last night. And if we take a look at our overall favorite outlooks the next 2 weeks, you can see warmer than normal temperatures as a whole, favoring that. In terms of rainfall potential next 7 days, overall, not quite as heavy in the Midwest. Obviously, they've had a lot of rain in the short term. Messier type of a setup the next 7 days, especially across the eastern ag belt. As we go into this week 2 time frame, we'll show you both temps and precip here. Number one, I do think that there could be at least a couple of days of some more notable heat, maybe not as extended as what we've had to close out June, but I do think that there are some hot days in there. And in terms of precipitation, as we build in that warmth and increase it, we will get the storm cluster threat to develop across the Central Plains, Midwest, and into the Ohio Valley. Now, I will note, with this type of a pattern, as we've talked about at length, you tend to get messy storm clusters. You tend to get some of those have and have-nots. While I think that most of this region cashes in on moisture going through this week 2 time frame, don't be shocked if there's a couple of spots that get unlucky and get skipped over. If you're looking for drier trends, I would look out in this red area if there are going to be any. Southern Missouri, Arkansas, the lower Ohio Valley, that will be an area that we need to monitor closely as we move into July. In terms of the latest run of the GFS, I don't really have a major disagreement with it. I suspect it might be a little broad brushed in the lower Ohio Valley through here, but I do think this is an area that, at least the next 7 days, can be a bit more active. While areas further to the north, while there could be some locally higher totals than modeled here, tend to stay slightly less active. So something to keep in mind. Again, yeah, maybe has room to trend a little bit locally wetter further to the north, but generally speaking, it's a messy setup the next 7 days, with maybe some drier conditions for the time being across parts of Nebraska and Kansas. In terms of temperatures, let's dive into that a little bit more. So again, we've had notable heat. We've had well above normal temperatures. We've had record-breaking heat in here. There could be a couple more days as we get into next week in the northeast part of the country. Once again, 8 to 10 degrees above normal next Monday, Tuesday. So still, while it's a little bit more up and down, we still have those days where it can be very hot. Now, as we head into the 4th of July here, guys, you can see the warmth beginning to pick back up a little bit more widespread across the central part of the country. Again, guys, could be a couple of days in here, especially, I would say, in the Ohio Valley, that could have some heat. Could get back up into the mid-90s for a time. But, as you can see as we go through, then there's another weak front in here, and kind of the core of the warmth then heads back to the western part of the country. And so we deal with some ups and downs, but the general theme is above normal temperatures, really for much of the country, but especially the central and eastern U.S. the next 14 days. If you look to see how things average out, next 14 days averaging out a solid 2 to 4 degrees warmer than normal for the majority of the ag belt out through the 11th of the month. So warmth will be persistent. I really don't see a cooler than normal pattern in the cards anytime soon as things stand. But with some of those ups and downs, with some of the brief moderations and the back and forth and where the core of the warmth sets up, there will be moisture opportunities as we highlighted as we go, especially through that week 2 time frame. Now, what does this all mean as we head into the rest of July? Well, right now, again, our global winds are weak. They're negative, they're La Nina-like. If you take a look at years that were most similar late June in terms of getting extremely negative, extremely weak with those global winds, 2010, 2012, 2018, 2021, and 2022 are the 5 best matches in the last 25 years. You can see here it tends to favor warmth. It's what we call circumglobal ridging, where you tend to get ridges in all of the mid-latitudes here and kind of the cool air stuck up to the north across the Arctic. You take a look at the week 2 time frame, I should say, on the EPS, and it matches up pretty close as a whole. So we're feeling this global wind influence already in the extended range. We're seeing it show up in early July. The question is, can we get a bigger, more notable heat wave down the road? More widespread, more extreme heat, perhaps. I think that it's possible between the 15th and the 22nd of the month, the 3rd week of July, because historically speaking, about 3 weeks after we see the most negative point of our global winds, that is when we tend to get bigger heat waves. And so the 15th to the 22nd, I'm increasingly concerned that there could be a more notable wave of heat for the ag belt. If you take a look at the EPS weekly, it might be a little bit slow with this idea, but it's putting a very strong ridge of high pressure here over the southwest U.S. and over the southern tier of the country through here, and putting in a lot of heat as we go into late in the week 4 time frame. Again, I think it could be a little bit slow, but this is a hot signal. This is a hot pattern. A lot of times with our storm clusters, we look for this 588 line, and it's very far north for an ensemble model this far out, up into parts of the Midwest and the Great Lakes. So a couple of things with this. Number one, certainly a strong signal for heat risk. It's also a strong signal for severe storm cluster risk through this region as we go through the weeks 3 and 4 time frame. So certainly, I think we need to keep a very close eye on that time frame ahead. And if you look at temperatures here, overall the EPS weekly, I don't think it's perfect, but I think it shows the general idea that the majority of us will be warmer than normal through this time frame. In terms of precipitation, I suspect that it's a little bit too dry, especially where some of the storm cluster threats can set up through here. But it is highlighting that there can be perhaps some more dryness, some dry stretches, especially across the central plains as we head into the middle part of July. Breaking this down into a little bit more detail here, guys, what we have here are some of our analogs and some of our pattern driver analogs heading through July. Top here are those top global wind analogs. Bottom here, top tropical forcing analogs. They're very warm as a whole. Tropical forcing analogs actually even hotter across the north central part of the country. It kind of keeps the core of the heat there rather than back and forth from west to east, as we talked about yesterday. Tropical forcing analogs also would support a drier risk to the forecast. I think these are too dry. My suspicion is that these are too dry, but I do think that this is something worth monitoring. I'm a little bit closer to these top analogs here. This is a bigger pattern driver right now. It would favor a little bit of some dryness in the central southern plains, but you still have this ring of fire type of pattern around the ridge that can offer up rains and timely rains for a good portion of the ag belt. In terms of another pattern driver, just briefly mentioning here, our Southern Oscillation Index, that's just the difference between pressure in Darwin and Tahiti. Overall, it does tend to favor the warmth a little bit further to the east, which at times we can have the tendency for, right? We kind of showed that in the week 2 time frame, but it also supports this ring of fire pattern. The greens and yellows here are actually above normal precipitation, So you can see the ring of fire pattern that it's trying to show up here. And again, if there's anywhere that's a little bit drier, it's kind of in the middle of that here. Central Plains, maybe southwest Ohio Valley and western Tennessee Valley. Combining all this together, here are our top analogs as we head into July in terms of pattern drivers. You can see, overall, widespread warmer than normal conditions. At times, you will have the tendency to set the core of the heat up in here. At times, the tendency will be to set up in here. Blending it together, you end up with this type of a look. I suspect in that more notable heat stretch, this will be the corridor here where the greatest above normal temperatures will be between the 15th and the 22nd of the month. But again, we're kind of highlighting the entire month in the weeks 3 and 4 period as a smoothed out idea on this map. In terms of precipitation, guys, again, you can see the idea. Messy storm cluster type of signals through here. You can kind of see the ring of fire pattern through here. Perhaps some slightly drier than normal conditions, Kansas, Missouri, and into the western Tennessee and Ohio Valley regions. With all that in mind, here's our outlook. Weeks 3 and 4 temperature outlook. The only reason I didn't add an extremely above normal is because, number one, I don't necessarily think that we see extremely above normal temperatures throughout the entirety of this period. Maybe for a time, again, between the 15th and the 22nd, could be possible. And I also think at times we oscillate where the much above normal heat is. It could be at times in the Mountain West, could be at times in the Midwest, could be at times in the Northeast. And so that back and forth leads me to just keep things much above normal, and this is how we average things out. In terms of precipitation, tried to highlight this the best that I could. I do think that below normal precipitation up here, I don't think you're bone dry, though, across the northern plains, the Canadian prairies. There are some timely rains in here. Where things will be more active and storm clusters could be more notable, certainly, will be across the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. Where I have this black dashed area, this is where activity is more messy. You're not as widespread above or below normal precipitation. I think the further north and east you are, the more likely you are to see above normal rains. The further southwest you are, the more likely you are to see below normal rains. But I have to continue to emphasize here that there's probably spots within that black dashed area that get skipped out. There's probably spots that get even locally heavier rains. It all just depends on where the storm cluster's set up, and there's no way to know 100% whether it's going to go through Indianapolis, Chicago, or St. Louis, or Des Moines at this distance. All we can do is highlight the risk the best that we can. Again, if you're in the green areas, better chance you average out above. Brown areas, better chance you average out below. If you're in between, it's where you're normal to more messy type of a look. Real quick before we go, I do want to make the note. CFS here, week 3 time frame, highlighting a much above normal severe weather type of a risk. I do think it's too far west. I think it's too far into the northern plains. It needs to come a state or two east. I think that this goes right into what we talked about, especially heading into July, of an above normal severe weather risk and above normal derecho risk in the orange and red areas here across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and into the Northeast United States. So, guys, that is all that we have for today's forecast. That's a breakdown to the best of our ability as we go into July. Certainly need to be keeping an eye on that heat threat ahead, but it still does look like there should be timely rains in there to help things out. Guys, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend.